Hello, I'm Porschia Parker Griffin, and I want to welcome you to the Career 101 podcast, a place for ambitious professionals and seasoned executives who want an edge in their career. We're talking about all of the things you were never taught or told when it comes to career growth, development, and change. Now, let's get into it. Today, we are talking about entrepreneurship. How can business process improvement help me with Nina Segura? With many years of experience in management consulting, Nina has spearheaded global change programs for clients such as American Express, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and HP, saving over $300 million in operating expenses, enhancing enterprise value, and keeping the best and brightest. She also works with mid-market accounts to double revenue and increase engagement. Her mission is to make every day feel free, fun, and fulfilling like a Friday. In this way, teams show up energized, excited, and eager to collaborate, so they anticipate not only your needs, but also the needs of your culture, and most importantly, your customers. Nina is the best-selling author of Every Day is Friday, the ACTT Blueprint for Leaders and Entrepreneurs. As a certified coactive coach, Six Sigma Black Belt, business process architect, and interim C-level executive, Nina leads the Metaspire team in developing multidimensional strategies to fast-track results and secure wins to meet financial, customer, employee, and process goals so that your organization is profitable, productive, and stays in its prime. That is an impressive bio, Nina. How are you?
Thank you. I'm really honored that you would read the whole thing and not just pick 3 things from it. So thank you.
Absolutely. I want to roll out the red carpet. I think that our listeners should know a good bit about you. So we're thrilled that you are here to discuss business process improvement and how that can help. But first, we want to know a little bit about you. So tell us all about 7-year-old Nina.
It's when you ask me that question, I love that question so much because all of us were once 7-year-olds, right? Unless we are 7. So I love it so much. And I was thinking it's such a beautiful question to have people get to know one another and connect with each other. So that's a great question. Thank you. I would say that my 7-year-old loved learning, same as today, loved going outside, loved pets, loved beautiful, shiny things. She's a very exploratory. I think that goes well with entrepreneurship, being able to explore. And so I was always outside doing something, playing with my dog. We lived on the river in upstate New York. Playing outside was probably the most fun thing to do.
So what did you want to be when you grew up, Nina?
Both of my parents, Porschia, are musicians. So we, every Saturday, would hang out around the piano and play music. And so when my mother was a singer, that's how she met my dad in a club. And I always thought, I'm going to be just like my mom. I'm going to be a singer. And then as I grew up, I really, music became fundamental for me. And I got a scholarship for voice and the whole thing. And of course, as a good mom, my mom's better think about a backup plan. So she was wise to think that. And I thought my parents were immigrants. And so for us, like there was nothing better than having your own business. And so I thought, oh, let me learn about business. Business is, what I had heard that if I learned about business, I could be in any business. So I thought, oh, wow, options. I like it. I can explore any industry. Yeah.
So tell us about some highlights or pivotal moments in your career before you started your business.
I think for a lot of people that have those pivotal moments, there's always it's always either I got to get out of here or I don't, this isn't so bad, but I know that there's something better than this. And I think each time I made a shift, I was in that mindset, one or the other. And typically the latter came out better. So when I was in a position of, I know there's something better than this, but I'm not sure what it is, usually I got better results than actually running from something. So I think my husband always says run towards something. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So I think it's important that I say that before I talk about my journey. And I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. I grew up, eventually my parents separated, and I grew up with a single mom with no support from my dad. And so it became very apparent at a young age to work really hard. And I was in a program in high school, and I was selected. I was in a business program. I was selected by American Express to be an intern. So I got really lucky. American Express grew me up. I learned so much at that company. I'm so grateful. I was there 17 years and worked my way up from customer service to global reengineering and worldwide technologies and leading global programs. And my team was responsible for identifying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of savings, and not just identifying, but making sure it actually happened. And understanding how to engage the culture is really important. Now, with large companies, of course, that's important, but with smaller companies, it's about scalability and profitability. So when we got a new CIO, Glenn Salo left American Express quite a while ago. I'm aging myself by mentioning the CIO, and that's Steven Sperry now. But in any case, we got a new CIO. He dismantled our department, and my whole world was like, you know what? There's nothing wrong. I could certainly get another position, but there's something better that's calling me, and I don't know what it is. And so I just called my friends and I said, hey, if we could form the perfect company, what would that be like? And essentially, American Express handed me the consultants that I had. And I knew I trusted in our abilities to deliver. And so I didn't really even have a company when I first started, but I knew that I could have a company. So I told everybody I did. And we signed big companies really fast. And we signed Hewlett Packard, JP Morgan Chase, Blue Cross Blue Shield. We did post-merger and acquisition work there for Excelis and upstate New York. And so we will just word got around. Hey, there's a boutique management consulting company that's beating the prices of Accenture and the Big Four. And it was very lucky. I got very lucky to be able to get out the gate that fast. And then when 2010, my mom passed away, and I remember flying around and making all this money, and it was great, awesome. But I was like, I have no life. If I were to die right now, I don't know who's coming to my funeral. And I took about a year off, just did whatever I wanted, and basically said, I want to work with more mid-market accounts. I want to be able to transform businesses to support them, making sure that the founders' values are inculcated throughout the company, but also to get them out of the founder's trap, because a lot of entrepreneurs hit certain financial levels and then they crash, right? So you make your 750, you get to $1 million, and how do you double it? And what are some of the tricks essentially for breaking free from the founder's trap? And one of them I know we're going to talk about later is process, and getting good executable, profitable processes out.
Your background is very impressive, Nina. I think this is where you were headed, I think, with the founder's trap and processes. But how did you decide to focus on business transformation with your own company?
I think, like many of us, we've been at the effect of strategic decisions that impact us. And so I think I just do go back, and I love the question about the 7-year-old, because I'm thinking, like, how did I even get a love for it? And the love for it came as everyone was sitting around as a little girl singing to the same page of music. And and in companies, a lot of times CEOs think that they know what's going on with frontline employees, but sometimes they don't. And so it's process actually helps bridge the gap. And music helps me with that, because I thought if we could all look at the same quote unquote piece of music, which is really like a process architecture or business interaction models, if we could see what's going on, then we can make the best choices to double our revenue, increase profitability, build a team that runs the business without excessive dependence on the founder. If we can just look at the way the work flows and the way it needs to flow to serve our ideal customer, to get the highest amount of profitability while creating the best quality experience. And I guess a lot of people use the word process, but I would say that the reason why processes are so important is because it's outcomes based. It's activity based. So for example, all businesses need to plan the business. But what is the handoff between that planning into executing profitable operations, right? Or what's the handoff between acquiring new clients and onboarding new clients? Or so all businesses have movement that happens. So what are we doing as we're looking at the way workflows, the way the customer experience goes, how are we all looking at, hey, these are key moments. These are key moments to keep a customer for a lifetime. And how might we best work together to execute so everybody's playing to their strengths and so that we're anticipating the needs of our founder before our founder even asks, so that the founder can get out of the weeds, the founder can get out of being in the middle of everything. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
You did. You did. I
Okay.
feel that you are so strategic, Nina, and I love it. I love all of the analogies that you use, the same sheet of music in terms of the process, bridging the gap in the business. I think that really provides a picture for people, perhaps in a new way, about processes. So thank you for sharing that. Process improvement has been, I think, a hot topic for a while, but for those who don't know, can you tell us what business process improvement is?
Yeah, business process improvement is essential to any business because when a business process is broken and a process, the definition of a process is a group of activities that forms a valuable output. So what activities are we doing that is valuable to the business? And if it's not valuable, how are we eliminating non-value added activities as it relates to customer satisfaction or employee engagement, right? Anything, any of the KPIs that we would typically have. So business processes, or how does the business work? What outcomes are we looking for? And what's the best way to reach those outcomes as it relates to what the business objectives are? And a lot of organizations look at financial goals, which we all need, right? We all need to be profitable. We all need to have really good run rates and et cetera, good forecasting. So we know what to spend on and cost management. We need all that. And then also, the biggest expense line are salaries, right? So what are we doing to look at the experience that we're giving our people so that our people want to stay? Because a lot of times things aren't working right. If the handoffs and linkages between departments aren't clear, people can start arguing with each other. It can cause a rift in the culture. It can cause a tear in customer service. People don't know the day-to-day things they're doing, how it rolls up into the big picture. And that's frustrating, not just to the founders, for the executives or the entrepreneurs, but it's really even more importantly frustrating for our clients. So it's really important that we look at the line of sight. What's the experience that the person's receiving from the first call to sunsetting the client and whatever that is? How do you create a customer for a lifetime? And what are all the pieces of music that need to go together? Who's the guitar player, right? What's the drum beat? What's the sequential order for which things need to happen? What's the steadiness of which things need to happen? And documenting process goals is essential for an effective business, right? If you want to be profitable, then look at the way that we're working. How might we best work together? Is really the question that process improvement answers. And that's why continuous process improvement is so important, to be able to have a place where people can provide feedback and not get defensive about it. I know a lot of times I get suggestions from my clients and I'm like, yeah, we thought about that. And instead of saying, yeah, we thought about it, we tried it, it didn't work, just saying, tell me more. Tell me more about that. So what are you doing with the client feedback you're getting? Or what are you doing with your frontline employees? How are you incorporating that feedback? And a lot of times the biggest mistake, and I think you might ask me this later, but one of the biggest mistakes I think entrepreneurs and executives make are that we build businesses around what we think is wanted instead of what really is valuable. And I think that there's a really big difference between that, right? Because I'm going to do what is valuable to me. And I think understanding outcomes and value, and what does that even mean to me as an entrepreneur and executive? What does that mean to the people that I'm around? What does that mean to my client? That is key, right? Because it's more than money. Money is important, but it's more than that. And entrepreneurs also and executives, they build the business around what they think the business should do versus their real strengths. I think that's another thing I would say, that if you want to have a good business process improvement, think about what are your strengths as an executive. Maybe that's not thinking about process. Maybe it's actually running the business. So maybe you don't want to maybe you want to hire someone to help you with process. so you don't have to do it.
Yeah, you said a lot of great things there. Before I dig into some of it, I do want to ask you a question that I think, or propose something to you that I see a lot that people ask me and tell me. So I've seen many entrepreneurs resist having processes because they say they don't want to be tied down, right, to one way of doing things, or they don't want to get bored. What would you say to someone who feels that way?
I would say that makes sense because typically entrepreneurs are innovative. You started your business because you don't really want to answer to people. Typically, I would say that makes sense, right? We're innovators. We think outside the box, right? That's how we got successful. And that's fine. And know that a process isn't a procedure. Process isn't that detailed where it's not. Procedure is very specific to a task. A process is the way things flow. And it's a very feminine way of looking at business versus just, I check this box and it moves to the next box. That's not really what a process does. A process really does define the way in which we add value. And so, what are the outcomes and the value? So, any entrepreneur, I understand you want a flexible process. That makes sense. But to say I don't want to follow a process that's valuable for my company and for my clients and my customers and my employees, that's something you would want. So I guess I would say maybe you don't understand what a process is if you think that, because a process really is to help you scale your business. And it's one of the main things that helps entrepreneurs and executives get out of the founder's trap, where all roads don't need to lead to you. All roads can lead to someone else and multiple people who's best to answer the question besides you, because you can't do it all.
The Career 101 podcast is brought to you by Fly High Coaching, where we help our clients soar to their full potential. Entrepreneurs are setting out to achieve their business goals, but without the right support, it can be difficult, if not impossible. If you need business coaching, we're here to help. Check us out on our website, fly-highcoaching.com. Yeah, I wrote down, Nina, a process isn't a procedure. And I think that is a great reminder for people because you're right. I think people blur both of them and just think of them as strict things that have to be followed. And I've heard other people tell me things change all the time anyway. Who wants to even put time into that? And I really like what you said about the value of
Yeah.
the process.
Yeah, things do change. And when you're looking at creating the consistency is important, right? I understand we don't want to get held down to over engineering something. In fact, that's some of the mistakes that were made as a Six Sigma black belt in the past. Like Six Sigma can actually cause trouble if you don't have a process architecture, if you don't have a whole, and if you don't understand how the whole enterprise works and how this specific project or process improvement is impacting the whole. That's a problem, right? And so that's where sometimes process architecture and architects really need to work closely with Six Sigma black belts if you're in that kind of a business. But from a startup perspective or from a young, think about this for a second, okay? If you don't say yes to this, I'll be surprised. But think engaging existing clients. All of us have customers. What are the key moments that need to happen with engaging existing clients based on your client portfolio, right? And I understand that we have different clients, but the most important thing is to be consistent on how we're engaging clients as it relates to the brand identity that we have. And so maybe that for you, maybe that means returning a call within 24 hours. Maybe that means whatever it is, there's key moments that could end up, that would be part of the procedure. Call the client, leave a message. This is a message, right? That's not what a process is. A process is what are some ways in which we can best engage our clients. And setting those outcomes and communicating those outcomes is the job of an entrepreneur and an executive. And when we can't communicate clearly what the outcomes are, we're going to bottleneck the process and our people are not going to be engaged. We're going to work more hours than we ever need to because we didn't just say, hey, here's the target. What's the best way you think we can get there? And invite people into the conversation to support how we can engage existing clients. So that's really what process improvement is.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, like, in a nutshell, like, it may see it I wish more than anything, like, I know I was talking to a group of attorneys yesterday, and they were saying that they go to school to be an attorney, but they don't a lot of the schools don't offer business classes of how you're a business owner now as an attorney, right? You're not just an attorney. So they were just taught, it just made me think that we don't talk about process enough. And it's really the key to a successful, and that's what business transformation is, Portia, is wherever the business is in the life cycle of an organization. It could be startup, entrepreneurship, middle market, blue chip, right, aristocratic, wherever it is, process is important in all phases. I'm not saying to over document things, but it's important to eliminate unnecessary variables, because unnecessary variables cost time, and time as an executive, your time is right worth everything. Like, we only have a certain amount of time. So honoring our time is vital. And the way that we can honor our time is supporting our organization to run more efficiently and effectively.
I completely agree. And that's why I was so excited to talk to you about process because I think you're exactly right. I think most of the entrepreneurship conversation starts with the vision and your big idea and your values and what are you offering and what's your product and what's your service. And then there's some talk about financials, that how to get there, the process. I think it's largely missing for a lot of people. So I think what you do is just really amazing work, Nina. And I've told you that before.
I love you too. So that's why I was like, oh, wait, what are you doing? I'll get to it as soon as possible. I think for entrepreneurs too, probably the biggest thing I think as a startup is what you said is so key is you build a business based on your strengths. The business model and the business processes comes from you and your strengths. Otherwise, you're just starting your corporate job all over again. Like, you're going to be a slave to your business. You're going to hate it. You're going to want to quit. And like, I can tell you, I've been there. I've reinvented myself since 2005 or many times. And so I know you'd asked about that. And it really does come down to having someone you can talk to and having a good person like you to support with the human resource management and cultivating a winning culture. I know you know how to do all that stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, Nina. You started talking about mistakes earlier. You mentioned things about business owners kind of building their business around like what they think people want or just other areas instead of their strengths. But what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen entrepreneurs and executives make with business process improvement?
I think there's a couple things. One I think I had mentioned is don't let Six Sigma lead. Have the business process architecture lead. Have the looking at how the business needs to work as it relates to ideal customer experiences, how it relates to in valuable inputs and transforming them to valuable outcomes. Look at that. And then from there, when you know things are broken, a lot of times what will happen is we have too much data as organizations, depending on how big the company is. So I think having meaningful conversations around what the root causes are for some of the challenges we have, and preparing the team for, hey, this is the win we're looking for, so that everyone again is singing to the same page of music. And then I think with process improvement is having a good partnership with having a good sponsor. I would say oftentimes the sponsor can reside in technologies, and in my opinion, that's a mistake. I think the best sponsor for business process improvement should be operations, should be a COO or operational leader. If it falls under technologies, it ends up becoming technologies that are red line to the business. It doesn't make really a whole lot of sense, right? To have like process improvement people work for technologies. So I think that's the other mistake I see organizations make, is that they don't realize that process is a subset of operations. So even though it's enterprise wide, right? It's marketing, it's sales, it's all the entire components of a organization is really process improvement, but it should fall under operations and a strong operational leader to support with profitability. Yeah.
It sounds operation should definitely be at the forefront. But what are some other tips that you would give executives and entrepreneurs who want to focus on business process improvement?
I think for executives, there's a business process championship training that they can take, which is just, this is how I champion having people understand the importance of process and their role to play as it relates to valuable outcomes for the organization. So that you don't have to be a practitioner. You don't have to architect processes. You don't have to do all that. But you do need to explore, like, why are we looking at process so that we can work better together at the very minimum and be profitable. So that money then can go to what? A new technology, or maybe whatever it is. Maybe you need to upgrade your AI, or you need to hire Porschia Apply High Coaching, right? To separate you with some really cool team and leadership training. I think it's important that we manage our resources. And I think for entrepreneurs and executives, regardless of where you are in the corporate life cycle, it's important for you to understand that everything we do has time attached to it. So if I'm unproductive by 30%, think about one thing you could do right now is, like, how unproductive am I? Like, how much time in my day do I spend being unproductive, and really do like a root cause around that? Am I saying yes to things I could say, hey, so-and-so's better at that than me? Am I redirecting? Am I hiring? I talked earlier about establishing the business based on your strengths and the strengths of the founders. If you're just starting as an entrepreneur, then what strengths do I need to hire to continue to have a fully functioning business? And then who's responsible for these key outcomes, and how do I incentivize that to occur? Um, I think for executives, you look in big businesses, they already know. Big blue chip companies already have process teams. So just think about that for a second. Regardless of if you're in, like, starting a business or you're in mid-market, your evolution as an organization will point to process at some point. You can't get around it, like, really. And you could, but it's the impacts of not having good processes and like you said, earlier, like changing your mind and like the variables. Like, one thing for sure that process does is support consistent outcomes. And it doesn't mean that you can't make exceptions or what life is, but just really consider reducing as many variables in the process as possible, or at least looking at what the outliers are. And is that really worth your time, spending so much time on one thing? Like today, our website went down and I was like, oh, I hate that I have to call, and why do I have to fix it? And then meanwhile, the proposals, right? Because I'm in business development and the person who puts all the deals together and the engagement manager, that took time for me doing that. And so I still have people waiting to talk to me. I still have deals to close, but I was doing technology. So I tell you this in disclosure because I don't want you to think I always have everything together. I don't. I'm learning along with you all. But that call cost a lot of money, right? Because it took my time away from, that was unproductive, that I had to get on the call.
Yeah.
Think about that. How many calls am I on that I shouldn't be on?
Yeah. To that point about calls, I no longer answer the phone if it's not a scheduled meeting. Like, my assistant will pick it up and get back to them, because I realize one call can throw my whole day off with all of my meetings and everything else I need to get done. So I'm with you on that. Nina, I wrote down that process supports consistent outcomes. And I think that is a great thing for people to remember. That's a great takeaway. That's a writer downer, guys, when you're thinking about your business. And I really like the point that you made about large companies, right? Large companies, they all have some type of process department or process improvement, or someone whose responsibility it is to look into processes. But let's think about the entrepreneur that might be a one woman or a one man show. And they were down on processes earlier, but then they heard what you said about the importance of process. And now they're like, okay, I need to get some processes together. What's a good first step for someone in terms of starting with kind of process improvement in their own company?
I think the very first thing is planning the business, right? Because oftentimes if you're a sole entrepreneur, you're executing the work, right? You're like, when we first started, I was the consultant, I was the employee engagement manager, I was like all these things. And think about, for you, what do I really lose track of time doing? What do I do so easily that I lose track of time doing? Be committed and devoted to spending time planning the business. Because if you don't work on the business and you're always executing and you're always looking at acquiring new clients, you're not going to be able to really get out of the founder's trap doing it that way. So I would say be committed to the one business process, which is spending at least 25% of your time. I know that sounds like a lot, but spending at least 25% of your time up for us, it's every Monday. We don't take any client calls Monday mornings. And we're looking at how can we, one of the things we do on the sales meeting is like, how do we increase the relationship of those of which we were getting referrals from? Who's advocating for us? And if you're in a business, probably the best thing you can do is be very grateful for every referral you get, of course. And I know we're talking a lot about young entrepreneurship, which I think is where it all starts, but spend time thinking, nurturing those relationships. Like Porschia, you and I have had maybe 10 conversations. Some of us could have said, why are they talking? They're competitors. We're really not, right? We support businesses differently, and there's things that you're better at than I am. So I'm going to call you for that. And don't be afraid of people that do the same thing you do. But I would also say be the outlier when you're networking, because if you try to be the only person in the room that does what you do, so that, oh yeah, it's what Porschia does, or that's what so-and-so does, so that you're the go-to person for XYZ, and be really clear in terms of planning the business. And I know I'm going to sales a little bit because I think it's a lot like you have to be a salesperson. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a salesperson. Think about how might you best support the work of strategic partners that are doing similar work to you, but in a different way. And that's time well spent, really. I think in the beginning, I think I would have run away from a conversation like you and I. Like I think back to who I was in 2005. I would have been like, why? I don't know. No, don't be afraid of those conversations. Like have them. Get to know the people that you think are doing the same thing you are, but don't spend too much time in it. So I would say commit to planning the business at least 25% of your time. Do it early. So then that way you can lead your vendors. We know for sure the other thing big businesses do is they base their work on quarters. So yes, the Every Day is Friday book has a strategic roadmap in that book. It's the ACT blueprint. And so yes, you need a vision and mission and value proposition, and you need to understand what the components of your core offerings are and what the markups are, right? You need all that. You need to understand how to forecast money and that kind of thing. But you also need a 90-day plan. Big businesses base goals on quarters. So in our women's business mastermind program, all the women have a 90-day plan, and all the women support one another with having that 90-day plan and brainstorm and help each other. So I would say the other thing is I've always invested in a mastermind group. I've always been in one. It's vital. Be in a place where people can tell you what's going on in their business, so you don't feel so bad if you have to close a portion of your business, or you're not feeling if you're starting a new product line, you understand that, hey, consumer spending's up or it's down. Be around people who understand what's going on in the market if you don't. So commit to planning the business, bottom line.
I love it. I love it. What I would add to that also for people just getting started with process is to document. So get everything out of your head and
Yes.
out and onto, I usually tell our clients your favorite notes app. So for me, it's Trello, but for someone else, it could be Notion.
We use ClickUp. We like ClickUp quite a bit.
But get it out of your brain and into some software so you can start to build some of these more developed processes and workflows that Nina has mentioned. So tell us more about your business, Nina.
It's so funny because I was just thinking, like in our ClickUp, we literally, the way we work, unless it's a project like a quick win or a big win, we literally have the process documented in the way that onboarding new members or engage existing clients or sustain contact with former members. That's in our ClickUp. So the tasks are subsets of those, if that makes any sense, or create awareness of services. So that's where all the networking and the business development goes.
It's a good segue to just tell us more about your business.
So my vision is a world where we inspire, influence, and empower one another while honoring the feminine. I think in large part, men have paved the way for corporate America, which is great and lovely, and I'm very grateful. And at the same time, there's a lot of women. We're not little men. We don't do business as men. And I think regardless of gender identity or gender expression or any of that, it's important to feminine leadership really is beyond all that. It's really about taking time to reflect, right? Taking time to sharpen our tools, learn about the Hogan assessment, which I know you do. learn about who we are, who are the people around us, reflecting and taking a time out, sharpening the saw. And reflective feminine leadership is not just about reflection, it's about empathy, right? It's about all the things. There was a study done, the Athena Doctrine, 64,000 interviews were done across 30% of, you probably read the study, 30% of the world's GDP, so US, Canada, Japan, right? And what they found in that study is 8 out of the 10 characteristics of leaders that they considered being wanted more now than ever. Those qualities are considered feminine in nature. Patience, which I'm not really patient, full disclosure. Patience, at least pause, right? So to get a different perspective. So my goal for myself is to integrate more of that, more of the spending quality time with quality relationships and not being in hyper task drive. So I think the world is hungry for that. Look at what's going on now with flex schedules and hybrid schedules. It's important for us to remember that people are human beings. And with virtual engagement, we launched super virtual teams not too long ago, helping people get engagement virtually, because we would document all these wonderful processes, but then how do you really get people to buy into that? So we started doing more virtual team building as teams were thinking about now flex work schedules and things like that. Still very important to do that. And then we have a women's business mastermind program that we do. We work primarily these days with mid-market accounts to hire a little bit higher market accounts. And then I guess it's been cool, fun time with you, chatting and helping people have consistent outcomes, repeatable good outcomes.
So we'll be providing a link to your website and your other social channels in our show notes so people can find you online. But what is the best way for someone to get in touch with you, Nina?
I would say you could go to metaspireconsulting.com. So METASPIRE consulting.com. And there's a little link on the top where you can book a call with me and we can chat about your needs.
Great. I want to ask you our last question that we ask all of our guests. How do you think executives or professionals can get a positive edge in their career or with their business?
I think we talked a little bit about it, which is align the work you do with your strengths. If you know that you're miserable doing something day in and day out, it's up to you to be empowered to say enough of this and to look at other ways to align the work that you do with your strengths and to support that getting done. Because if you're not happy, it impacts the people around you. It impacts your financial situation. So I would say take some time to understand your strengths. There's Hogan, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, right? DES. There's tons of information on who to support you with what's best for you. It's a big reason why people are in the owner's trap, by the way. So is that they don't build a business based on their strengths. And I may have said that, but I just want to end with that because it's really important. Align the work you do with your strengths, period.
Well, Nina, you have shared a lot of insights with us today, and I'm sure that our listeners can use it to be more confident in their careers and also in their businesses. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for having me, Porschia.
This episode was brought to you by the Bravebird Career Alliance, the go-to membership designed for seasoned executives and ambitious professionals with everything you need for career planning, strategy, training, and support. Thank you again for listening to the Career 101 podcast. I hope you have at least one key takeaway that you can use in your own career. If you enjoyed hanging out with us, please rate, subscribe, and share this podcast. Until next time, here's to your success.